Zoom has joined a select group of technology companies that have also become a verb. "I'll Zoom you" is a common cry, particularly during the past 12 months. So how have things changed for the video communications giant in the past year? Well, I'm talking today with Magnus Falk. He is CIO Advisor at Zoom, about how the company has responded to the challenges and opportunities of the pandemic era. So Magnus, can you just tell us about your role at Zoom? Because CIO Advisor is a bit of an unusual job title.
Hi, Ray. Thank you so much for the question. Yes, the CIO advisor at Zoom plays the role of being able to have conversations with CIOs and CEOs about the use of video in their business. It has become a transformative medium. And a couple of years ago, we realized that that was what was happening. And our global CIO at Zoom became so inundated by requests to have discussions with business leaders or presentations or talk to the media that we recognized that we needed to scale the capabilities of the CIO. And so a number of CIO advisors like me, ex-CIOs, CTOs, having portfolio careers, were recruited to be able to continue to have these conversations with customers, to be able to help them reimagine their businesses, but also to learn from them as the sorts of things that Zoom should be creating to help.
Okay, excellent. Very interesting setup there, and we can see from the past year why that would be required. Now, in the past year, how has the change in traffic and the growth in Zoom's traffic impacted Zoom's technology requirements?
Going from 10 million daily meeting participants to 300 million, a 30 times growth in daily meeting participants would have stressed any company. The thing about Zoom is it was built only 10 years ago, internet ready, able to consume the cloud, able to scale through the use of APIs, and as a consequence, the technology requirements was actually about adding virtual servers and adding new partners for virtual data centers. Zoom already had 19 global data centers, or a few less then, but now we've got 19. And what we did was scale our compute capability to be able to handle the meeting volume. The whole architecture of Zoom is built to scale infinitely. I mean, in theory, everyone can be on a video, across the planet if there's just enough compute. And so our job was to make sure there was enough compute available to support the increased utilization. And that meant sometimes scaling up 1,000 virtual servers each night in order to deal with the next increase in capacity the following day. So the only capacity constraints really comes where Zoom's virtualized infrastructure attaches to the PTSN network. And there, of course, you've got to have fixed number of ports. And so sometimes we creeped at the number of ports before people used internet over IP, voice over IP to connect rather than dialing into meetings.
And what would you say has been the biggest lesson learned during the pandemic?
I think the huge lesson is that before the pandemic, Zoom was a company that supported thousands of businesses who were successfully using video. The moment the pandemic struck, we found we had a new user base. People used Zoom and found it just worked. And so as a consequence, they used it to keep their education, their lives, their businesses going at a level that we hadn't really anticipated. So we had a new consumer business, and people invented how to use Zoom to support their activities, which really was a huge lesson to us, how useful our platform could be. It was a humbling experience to be able to be so useful to so many people. But with that, of course, came thousands of new use cases, which really we hadn't imagined the platform being used for originally, being a business-to-business platform.
So what would you say have been the most surprising data points from the past year? What are the metrics that have stood out that would maybe nobody would have thought of before?
Well, I think the key metric that stood out for me is that 30 times growth in a couple of months. I think if one looks back at the sort of things that people learn at business school, the study of a software as a service company that can grow 30 times in such a short period of time is really will be the sort of thing that becomes a case study. Business school students or computer science students will want to work out how it was done and what challenges it created. So I think that's the key metric. Then you can look across, and the number of free users increasing so dramatically. 70 times usage in particular jurisdictions. Those sort of things stand out, and of course, the financial numbers stand out to a lot of investors who, clearly have been very happy with our progress.
So obviously, with all these developments, security has been a big consideration. How has Zoom's security strategy changed in the past year?
Thanks for asking the question. I mean, there are two real forks in the security road that I'd like to talk about. I think the first stems from all the new users who started using our platform. And I think, to be honest, up front, we didn't have a platform that helped them to be as secure as they needed to be. As I'd said, we'd been a business-to-business platform that allowed the security functions to highly configure Zoom to be perfect for their business needs. But all the new consumers didn't have IT functions, and they just picked it up and ran with it with the defaults. And the defaults were pretty minimal when they started using them. And so, we had religious ceremonies where people just kind of came straight in from having received a link with no security. And of course, bad things happened. So the first fork in the road I wanted to talk about was making sure that we were great for these new consumer use cases or these new inventive use cases. So we made sure that our defaults were really spot on for them. It took a little bit of experimentation, but by use of waiting rooms and passcodes and whitelists for various safe domains, we actually helped dramatically to support people's new uses. We also released a new version that put a security shield down in the bottom of the user interface, and that grouped together all the security functions so that people could be really easily in control. They could stop people sharing screens, or they could boot out a user. We've seen well used at a parish council meeting. And they could do all the things that were previously kind of, around the place. They were available, they were difficult to find. And so this was trying to make sure that a consumer user could find it really quickly and deal with it. And the latest one that we've put there is to be able to suspend the meeting so that you can do what you need to do and then restart the meeting without having to think you have to do it in live, in real time. So that fork in the road was a really important set of investments that we acknowledged that we'd been taken a bit by surprise by all this innovative usage of our platform. We wanted to work hard to get that right, and we had a 90-day plan which included that fork in the road. And the second fork in the road is to make sure that our software was the leader in terms of encryption and capability, bug detection, working with researchers, so that our software actually provided a highly secure platform for anyone to use. And our introduction of true end-to-end encryption as an option for both free and paid users, I think put the icing on the cake and made us the leader in security in video conferencing.
And what has been the most challenging demand from customers that Zoom has had to deal with?
Well, our customers are absolutely lovely and have thrown all sorts of interesting challenges our way. And I think that the demands that come to mind that have stretched us a little bit are those that are so wide volume, and one that comes to mind is a funeral celebration where over 100,000 people joined the meeting to participate in a goodbye. I think there are other interesting use cases where we've helped game shows or audience participation events where they've wanted to inject the audience into the thing that they're broadcasting. And so we've worked hard to find which are the correct ways of bringing audience participation into a live interaction. And you might have seen these on television or been at a sporting event where there have been similar virtual add-ons to the activity. I think that those have also led to dramatic usage of Zoom in the political space. And during the recent US presidential election, we've seen all the candidates and the victorious President Biden make extensive use of Zoom in order to interact with people, to persuade, officials to direct, and we've seen the use of Zoom to swear in 200 of his officials at a ceremony hosted at the White House.
Now, obviously, this is a space that continues to change and innovate. What are the key developments that Zoom would like to see from the tech development community that would help Zoom to progress its business?
I mean, it's a lovely question for us to ask everyone else what we want of them, but actually, it's what we want to provide to them. I think we ask them to embrace the things that we're offering, and the new thing that really stands out as a place where we're working with the developer community is our Zoom app initiative, where we've always had ability to have video called from your business process. You've got an application and suddenly you need to use video. You can call Zoom using APIs or SDKs to make your business process better. But what a lot of our customers have told us is that the meeting is now the business process. And what they wanted to do was introduce their functionality in the meeting. For example, contribute, attend a charity event and donate. Why would you want them to leave the meeting to donate? To be able to sign a document, to be able to work through a document, agree it, and then sign it in the meeting. And so what we've done is created a Zoom app architecture that allows third parties to build functionality that can be triggered within the meeting using the best of breed capability to do that thing, be it interacting with documents, whiteboarding, etc. So we would love to work with any developer who wants to use Zoom as the medium by which they interact with their customers or colleagues, but want to introduce some of their specific functionality within the meeting.
Yeah, so this idea of the platform and APIs that enable the integration of third-party applications is something that the telecom operators are now largely broadly working on as they build out their telco cloud platforms. And something that Zoom has done in the past year is also to broker relationships with major telcos such as BT and Deutsche Telekom. Why are those relationships important to Zoom?
Well, as a CIO in the past, I have relied on third parties to operate whole swathes of my infrastructure. And the desktop is one of those areas where you can find that you rely on a third party to deliver the whole desktop. So, if Zoom's trying to talk to a CIO and you go, well, no, my partner is already, this excellent organization who is managing my desktop, then it's important that Zoom can partner with those desktop providers, as well as, for organizations which have large enough functions where they buy things and manage their own desktop. That becomes a really strong business partnership to make sure you do the right thing for your customer.
And finally, I guess the billion-dollar question, what are Zoom's expectations about what will happen next?
Well, I think this brings up the dreaded hybrid work concept that I talking to CEOs, CIOs right across the business spectrum. I think there's general acknowledgement that we are not going to be back to normal anytime soon, but likely not ever. But they also think that no one wants to continue the environment where everyone's remote. And there is a general acceptance that things will be somewhere in the middle, in this hybrid work of some of your staff are at home, some of your staff are at work, some of your customers are at home, some of your customers are at work. And so this hybrid interaction between people who are in various different locations has become a dawning reality. And Zoom is working extremely hard to create the innovations that make that a great experience for your people. I think there will be a bit of a talent war, that companies will want to make sure that they support their staff's preferences for working from home, and support them in doing that. And I think that as a consequence, there becomes a bit of a transformation of your business processes to those bits of your business process that you can virtualize versus those that have to be done in physical environments. And of course, there is that whole establishing trust within that environment, the trust that that your people are actually doing the things they promise to do, plus also the other trust of around data exchange, and also the trust of establishing safe and effective mechanisms for them to do that work. So I think this hybrid work is going to be invented over the next couple of years, and where every business lands in that rich spectrum is going to be slightly different. So we're working on, well, we've delivered a whole series of things to help support the return to work, being able to work hybrid across our video platforms with functionality that actually tries to level up the remote and the in-work experience, and also listening very hard to customers as they try experimenting and want something slightly different from us. So we're expecting huge progress in Zoom apps. Lots of customers are talking about putting their own specific functionality into our meetings. And I think the innovation is only just beginning.
Absolutely. I think that very few people would disagree with that analysis, and it'll be really interesting to see what additional functionality there is on Zoom in the coming months. Magnus, great to talk to you today. Thanks for joining us, and maybe we get to catch up in the future and see how things have developed further at Zoom. Thanks again.
I'd welcome that. Thank you very much, Ray. Lovely to see you.